Hello, everybody. So today we are talking about the difference between occult magic and witchcraft magic. Now, just before we start, when I'm talking about witchcraft here, I'm talking about more European-based witchcraft. I understand people who identify as witches. There's a plethora, a melting pot of different types of witchcraft. But I'm talking about your more kind of common-based European witchcraft, if you want to call it that. So, the first thing to say is that occult magic is far stronger than witchcraft magic. Why? Well, I'm going to touch on this a little bit, but I did a long bit of content about this a while ago. I think it's in Dark Side of Spirituality. I'm not sure. Could be down the rabbit hole. I can't remember. But it's called the I can't remember what it's called now. It's a long episode anyway. Something about the occult. Anyway, so occult magic is mostly associated with things like Freemasonry, Satanism, Catholics, and that kind of ilk. Now, let's just go through some key reminders, right? So, the Romans were originally pagans, okay? You had the whole thing with Mark Antony and Julius Caesar, just prior to him knocking off Cleopatra of Egypt. And then not long after they crucified poor old Yeshua, turned into the Roman Catholic Church. Now, the Catholic Church is steeped in occult symbols, Anunnaki symbols, Satanist symbols, Baphomet symbols. Now, they've basically stolen and archived at the Vatican. This is what I believe, right? So it's a fact, but this is what I believe. That ancient Anunnaki Egyptian knowledge. So they work a lot with Egyptian symbols, which connects into the Egyptian deities that are all ruled and controlled by Ra/Amun-Ra. Okay. Now, I had a little bit of a research because I'm not really into the Egyptian stuff. I'm quite against it, if I'm quite honest with you, from my experience. I'll touch on this second. There is a divine masculine and feminine in the Egyptian pantheon, which is Osiris and Isis. The problem is Osiris gets knocked off pretty quickly, and from what I can remember, Isis kind of falls in line. Now, witchcraft is mainly women, and they should be working with the divine feminine. Now, the more earth-based pagan-y type witches do work with certain energies and deities, don't get me wrong, but there's an awful lot of ones that work with the Egyptian stuff. You know, you take this year's winter solstice at Stonehenge, and some little black cat who's basically been brought along by one of the travelling hippies is on the stone, and they're going, Basset's here, that she's come to bless us. So at some point, some Egyptian knowledge that the occultists are using has slipped into the hands of the witches. Now, surely, you know, European-based witches should be working with European gods and goddesses, pagan ones. You know, Hecate, she's Greek, for example, so we can kind of forgive that, but she's not the divine feminine. No. Now, the irony of it is, a lot of witches that I know that work with the Egyptian pantheon of deities, they will do a little bit of stuff with Isis. You'll notice the cat's kicking off because I'm talking about this. But a lot of them work with Sekhmet and Basset. Now, that's fine. You know, it's a female deity. The problem is, in the Egyptian-based pantheons, they are all come under and controlled by Overlord Ra/Amun-Ra. And Amun-Ra is one of the most toxic masculine energies, deities going. So why are they working with this? Doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense to me at all. As I've mentioned previously, I've had a number of issues with witches who specifically work with Sekhmet who've tried to take me down. Why is that? That's not a good thing. Now, you've got the occult magic lot, and then you got the witchcraft magic lot, and they're basically using the same energy streams, which is toxic masculine energy. And they can't see that. The occult magic lot, like I say, their magic's stronger because it comes more from the horse's mouth. And I believe at some point, some of that information has probably been deliberately leaked to the witchcraft lot, knowing that that energy source will control the witchcraft and the covens. And they've completely lost sight of what they are here to do. Now, the aim of the game, right, because witchcraft-based spell work and magic is by and large more earth-based. So it's about using earth-based herbs and burning these herbs and stuff like that. I do it when I'm doing my hex removal. Now, the thing is, which a lot of people aren't actually told, and I bang about this all the time, the magic isn't in that, right? That is to get you in the right frame of mind. If I'm doing a hex removal, for example, I'm chucking all this stuff on, not because that's the magic, but for me, that gives me a gauge of how bad the black magic is that's been put on me to how the candle reacts to those elements. The magic comes from here. Now, occult-based magic knows that. So yes, they will intensify it with blood rituals and sacrifice and depraved things because they're feeding that dark energy stream. But they know better than the witches do that the magic comes from here. Now, when you talk about Christ consciousness, that is basically talking about alchemy, because it is about balancing the elements within you. Okay, so that you can create and perform energy manipulation. That's what magic is. Okay, and it comes from here. The problem is too many witches are told that it's this, that, and the other, puff, puff, puff. Now, I'm probably shooting myself in the foot here because, as you've probably seen in some of my earlier content, I have a lot of covens out for me. Now, the ones at the top of the tower will know this, but the lower ones on the rung won't. Because witches aren't taught that the magic comes from here. The occultists are, the masons are. Like I say, they use certain symbols, they use certain practices to intensify that. If you want to actually be an alchemist, a true alchemist, it is about performing those rituals without sacrifice, without blood magic, without certain symbols. Okay? Because you understand that this projects and it creates the reality around you. But to do that, first off, you have to break your karmic cycles. You break your karmic cycles by knowing your worth and value, and you work on facing your trauma. Now, sadly, most of these people on both sides of the fence don't want to work on the trauma. They slip into narcissism, and it all becomes about them. They remove the spiritual element from their practice, which then becomes Satanism. Christ consciousness, okay, and that form of alchemy comes from the ability to do it because you have faced your trauma, you have faced your demons, and you've come out the other side stronger. And you do it purely with this. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with using tools. I use tools. Why? Because if I'm doing a hex removal and I see that candle, which it normally does with me, ends up in just gloop, I know it's been a bad hex. And that gives me confidence knowing that I have done the right thing. And the more confidence and the more belief I get, the more knowing I get, the stronger the magic gets. too many people are feeding into these systems, and it's all just going to the same place. Why are witches using magic that involves toxic masculine energy? Why are they doing that? So yeah, there you go. That's my thoughts on occult and witchcraft magic. Ta-ta.